Trump's assault on democracy isn't just part of his past. It's what he's promising for the future. He's willing to sacrifice our democracy, put himself in power.
Did you see him? He was stuttering through the whole thing. He's going he's a threat to democracy. They've weaponized government. He's saying, I'm a threat to democracy. He's a threat to democracy. Well, okay. Couldn't read the word. He's a threat to democracy. You know how bad the press is? You know what they do? They take me saying that like that, and they say, Trump couldn't say the word democracy. That guy's got a serious weight problem. Go home, start exercising.
I don't know, maybe I'm biased. I mean, I really don't think that I am because I'm not the biggest fan of Joe Biden, but I don't see it. I don't see dementia. I just see a much older man who has cognitive and memory lapses just like a lot of older people do. This one just insists on continuing to work at an incredibly high level, the highest in the world, in fact. That job is the hardest and most stressful and most physically and mentally and emotionally taxing in the world. It makes sense that he's fumbling a bit. And I don't know if that makes me ageist, but I think it's just true. It's a little farcical that we're looking to this man to lead us into the future. Now that said, I don't think anything Joe Biden has said or done is worse than the things that Trump has said or done, even though Trump is so much younger than Biden, and yes, that's sarcasm. He has had more than his fair share of hilarious cognitive failures, things that late night hosts have been highlighting and poking fun at for years.
Obama he doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't even mention them in his statements. It's all coming through Iran.
Well, you mean President Biden?
They were interviewing him 2 weeks ago, and they said, what would you advise President Obama? The whole world seems to be exploding. They never report the crowd on January 6th. You know, Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people, soldiers, National Guard, so whatever they want. They turned it down.
He was confused. He was confused the same way he said Joe Biden was going to start World War II.
And yet the Trump team has managed to sell this idea that Joe Biden is so much worse than Trump when really, aren't they really kind of the same, at least in this very specific context? Trump doesn't know who the president of Turkey is. Biden doesn't know who the president of Egypt is. We're not in good shape either way, again, in this very specific context. Anyway, so now the Biden campaign has to fight back against the allegations that he is mentally unfit for the presidency, and all of this comes at a time when he has misspoken, we'll say, quite a bit publicly. So all of the Biden people are out. They've been hitting the news circuit hard, defending their president in an effort to reassure the voting American public that Joe Biden is more than capable to be the president for another 4 years. But all of this reminds me of the later seasons of Game of Thrones a little bit. Sansa Stark was always kind of a lame character to me, but toward the end of the show, the cast kept doing promos saying that Sansa's really going to start coming into her own as a leader, as a feminist, as a queen fighter, whatever. So I thought, great, can't wait to see it. When the season finally aired, I didn't find Sansa doing anything particularly smart or impressive, but the characters in the show just kept talking about how smart Sansa was as if it had been a known and proven thing all along. It's a classic case of show, don't tell. When you're telling a story, the more compelling narrative is to show the audience what you would like to communicate to them rather than just telling them what you want them to understand. You help them to come to certain realizations on their own. It has a more meaningful impact on the audience. They can see and feel for themselves the truth that you want them to grasp, and it's got more depth. Conversely, if you just tell people that Sansa or Joe Biden is smart while they continue to do and say unsmart things, you're really not convincing anyone of much. You're gaslighting your audience and insulting their intelligence. But if you ask me, the best way for the Biden campaign to combat these allegations of mental unfitness is to show mental fitness and mental acuity. Others suggest that Biden should be more forceful and relentless in pointing out that while he may have some struggles, so does the other guy. But personally, I think that's giving too much credit to something that you're trying to discredit. Besides, it is unlikely at this point that you'll be able to convince a Trump supporter that Trump is imperfect. In an article in the Daily Beast, a 2020 senior advisor to the Biden campaign said, quote, "Us Democrats and the White House still believe we're in the year 2005 and the Republican Party is normal. Those days are over." The Republican Party in 2005, that was George W. Bush's Republican Party, so maybe not quite normal, but closer to normal than what we've got now. But 2005 was a long time ago. It was a completely different time. I was a completely different person. I think I was a junior in high school back then. I didn't have an iPhone strapped to my hand at all times. The only social media we had then was MySpace. And I'm just saying, maybe we were better off for it. But the point is, that was a radically different America. We were different people. We engaged with each other and with our government differently. And while things were far from perfect, we simply didn't have a lot of the modern challenges we have today. The idea that artificial intelligence would disrupt nearly every job market and industry, for example, was literally not a thing anyone was worrying about back then. Now, having said all of that, while both of these candidates are past their primes and out of their elements, they are the candidates we're stuck with. One of them will be our next president. The best hope we have is that whoever wins in November has a really strong and competent cabinet to pull them through. Right now, though, the Biden strategy going forward seems to be reframing the negativity around age and approaching the whole thing with humor. And Biden is now on TikTok, so here we are.
When you go to bed at night, do you worry about going to jail?
No, I don't really. I don't even think about it. I'm built a little differently, I guess, because I have had people come up to me and say, "How do you do it, sir? How do you do it?" I don't even think about it.
You know he thinks about it that night. It probably keeps him up every night. This man is terrified of going to jail.
These are corrupt people that I'm dealing with. They're destroying our country. I don't even think about it. All I think about is making the country great, making America great.
Not only has Trump convinced his supporters that the country and the deep state's out to get him, I think he's also convinced himself. I'm about to show you the result of this kind of brainwashing.
Good evening, America. Good evening, Republicans, conservatives. Good evening, our government. I am truly afraid for our country. The Liberal Party in general is becoming more and more anti-American.
Before I show you more of this video, I must say that everything he's accusing Democrats and the left of is something that the Republican Party is totally guilty of. It's that, every accusation is a confession thing with the Republican Party.
They are committing treason. They are going against our Constitution. They are looking to destroy American freedom that we have in the Constitution.
Committing treason and trying to destroy our freedoms. Which party is he talking about?
Trump supporters who have been lied to by Trump and his minions, individuals like Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, lied to by MAGA media, have been incensed and outraged, and they are now resorting to physically trying to storm the Capitol to stop the constitutional process.
Wait a second. I thought it was the left that was trying to destroy the freedoms of Americans.
Where do privacy and personal freedom begin, and where do they end? Questions that have framed an enduring divide in modern America. One many thought was settled nearly 50 years ago when the Supreme Court affirmed a constitutional right to an abortion. Today, the court answered that question again, this time on a 5-4 vote, taking away what was regarded as a fundamental right.
This is funny how that works. Anyway, let's hear what else this guy had to say before bedtime.
The current government we have supports this idea of the New World Order that is all about elitists controlling the world, and the rest of us are slaves.
Oh, that's funny because he's literally describing the late-stage capitalism hellscape that the Republican Party has thrown us into. Go on.
I'm kind of an old fat guy. I'm not going to go run in the streets. But I do support my brothers and sisters who support the Constitution of the United States of America, and will defend this country and our rights and the Constitution. My prayers go out to all those we're going to lose defending themselves from their rights being stolen from our government and from the Liberal Party.
I love how he ends the video saying, I'm too old to take part in a civil war, but, I will support and mourn all of the other patriots that die fighting. You have my blessing. Have you noticed how radicalized right wing has become? I mean, they're going to put me out of business, I swear, because my entire thing was getting them to say the quiet part out loud. And now that they're screaming the quiet part out loud, I mean, what else is left for me at this point? Right wing delusion. It results in these kind of people.
If you could say anything to Joe Biden right now, suppose he was me right here, and you had the opportunity to give him a message or conversation, what would you say?
Biden, old man, how much time have you got left in this earth? You're going to face God pretty soon. You claim you're Catholic. I hope you bring some asbestos underwear with you to the afterlife, because you're going to get kicked right into the lake of fire.
What do you think the punishment should be for somebody who has an abortion?
If you have actively and willfully murdered someone, I believe the death penalty is appropriate, because the Bible tells us that's what justice looks like.
So you're so pro-life that you're pro-death.
Let's pray for an end to this evil cause of abortion.
And do you think the Bible is a pro-life book?
Yes, absolutely.
And what about in Leviticus when God tells people to kill someone if they're gay? There you have it.
So if you look back at our previous presidential election, all of the, election was stolen thing that really took flight post-election after the media declared Biden the winner. The media doesn't get to call elections, but it was after the election. It wasn't going into the election, which is a little terrifying to me, that going into the election, that people that count the ballots that work at these polling stations are just not going to be safe. And it's actually, the terrifying thing is there's going to be a great many people that normally will, work at polling centers, and they are not going to work there anymore. And I've run into MAGA at rallies that has unequivocally said, hey, because things went bad. I'm gonna, volunteer at these polling locations or work at a polling location, and you're gonna get entire districts full of people that are America First, election denying people in charge of counting the votes.
Did 2,000 Mules convince you that there wasn't any voter fraud?
No, I understand there were hundreds of thousands of fraudulent votes.
Well, that's what I thought, and then I watched 2,000 Mules, and I was like, oh, this makes no sense.
Hey, I watched a guy from New Jersey come into the Pennsylvania warehouse and say, I got a truckload of ballots. Went through Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I watched the movie too. But all the
bullshit. I watched it on the internet on election night.
You watched it on the internet.
Yeah. It's not enough. So it becomes this thing where it's like, all right, it's not enough that we get out the vote. That's understand. But there's this other thing of get out the vote, but also work at your local polling location, because I speak to people at MAGA rallies that are more than happy to work at a polling location. And these are the people that after a 5-minute conversation with them, I don't want them anywhere near the foundation of our democracy, of our democracy. You get it.